Research suggests that about 20% of the population have an anxious attachment style and fear losing the relationship. And about 25% of the population have a more avoidant attachment style and fear losing themselves. And these two people are very often in relationship with each other. My name's Ruthann. I'm a clinical psychologist and expert in relationships. And in this video, I'm going to give you practical strategies for how you and or your partner can begin to transform this very common relational conflict. And I'm interested, which side of this conflict do you most often find yourself on? Go ahead and let me know in the comments. If you have an anxious attachment style, then you're likely someone who pursues in the relationship. You're probably hyper attuned to any little moments of disconnection or conflict in your relationship. And these moments of disconnection trigger your anxiety and your fear of losing the relationship. And they drive you to make little bids for connection. You may try to start a conversation with your partner or initiate physical contact or intimacy, even if your partner may be busy and engaged in other activities. Often these bids for connection are attempts to soothe your anxiety and to get reassurance that your partner loves and cares for you. But these are the very behaviors that are likely to activate the withdrawing or avoidant partner's fear of losing themselves in the relationship. If you're the withdrawing partner, you may perceive your partner's needs and requests for emotional support or their interruptions in your day as a source of irritation and a threat to your freedom. You may be concerned that their needs are going to be never ending and that they'll never be satisfied with what you give them. And this activates your anxiety about losing yourself in the relationship and can drive you to want to put distance between you and your partner. Maybe you ignore them or try to push them away. Or maybe you start to spend even less time with them in order to protect your freedom and your independence. Now, of course, these are the very behaviors that are likely to further activate the anxiety of the pursuing partner. And at this point, if you're the pursuing partner, you're likely extremely distressed and desperate for closeness with your partner. You may even accuse your partner of not caring for you in an attempt to get their attention and to take you seriously. But in turn, if you're the withdrawing partner, this escalation only feels like a further imposition and threat to your independence. And at this point, you may push your partner away or start accusing them of being irrational, overly sensitive, or far too needy. And I'm sure it's clear how this really escalates in a relationship. Now, at some point, either or both parties may realize that there's a real risk of losing the relationship here, and both may relent. If you're the anxious partner, you may give in, you may apologize, say you're being too sensitive, give your partner their space, but ultimately still feel emotionally neglected and somewhat abandoned in your relationship. If you're the avoidant or withdrawing partner, you may decide to give your partner some reassurance, spend some time with them in order to placate them, but ultimately doing so with an attitude of feeling burdened and also feeling no small amount resentful for this imposition on your time and your independence. In essence, neither partner really feels seen or heard, and neither feel like their needs are being met. The good news is, if both partners are willing and motivated, it's imminently possible to change this conflict. But even if it's just you deciding to work on your part, your behavior will have a knock-on effect on your partner's reactions and their response to you. So it is possible to create some shift in the relationship, even if at this time it's only you deciding to make a change. So let's look at 5 steps that you can take to begin to transform this conflict. Number 1, try to discover the stories underneath the conflict. How does your and your partner's past experiences color your perceptions of each other and of your relationships? It's important to do this with a spirit of curiosity and empathy. The chances are that neither you nor your partner are wholly in the right or wholly in the wrong. Both of you bring your own unique sensitivities to the relationship. Seeking to understand rather than to judge can create empathy and even compassion for each of your experiences. It can be helpful to think about your histories as the stories that lie underneath the conflict. If you're the more anxious person, you may be able to communicate to your partner, the story I'm telling myself is that you don't really care about me, and in the end, I'll always be alone. If you're the more avoidant person, you may be able to share with your partner, The story I'm telling myself is that I'll never be enough for you. It's best to have these conversations when you're not in the midst of a conflict, because when you're in the midst of a conflict, it's much harder to empathize and to think clearly. But being able to take a step back and understand these stories outside of a conflict, when you can both empathize and understand each other, can be a really important foundation for the next step. Step 2 is to map out the conflict. As you begin to understand both your own and your partner better, you can begin to map out the conflict cycle between the two of you. This can help to create some distance between you and the conflict that you're experiencing. Creating some distance between you and the conflict can allow you to look at it from the outside, and in so doing, you can begin to see each other as allies in solving this conflict rather than as enemies who need to fight each other in order to get your needs met. And when you begin to see each other as allies in trying to resolve this conflict, that leads very nicely into step 3, which is to de-escalate the conflict when it happens. Rather than trying to stop it entirely, accept that the conflict is likely to continue at least for some time. But by getting some distance, you can become more aware of it when it's happening in the moment and take a step back before joining the anxious-avoidant tango. You can ask yourself, what can I do to alleviate my partner's fear and better meet their needs in this moment? That leads very nicely onto step 4, which is to change your behaviors. If you're the pursuing person, how can you value your partner's need for autonomy and freedom? Try to view your partner's independence as a genuine need rather than as a threat to your relationship. Express interest, support, and even admiration for the things that are important to them. As you make space for your partner's independence, they're likely to feel soothed and feel more comfortable with getting closer to you. At the same time, it's equally important not to deny your need for closeness and intimacy. But consider how you communicate these with your partner. How can you communicate in ways that feel more like an invitation than a demand or imposition? This might mean you need to accept feelings of anxiety at times without immediately seeking reassurance from your partner. This can build your confidence that you can cope with these difficult feelings on your own. By tolerating your difficult feelings and creating space for your partner to approach you, you also will get to assess whether or not your fears of abandonment are unfounded. You'll find out whether or not your partner will come to you of their own accord when given the space and time to do so. And by not triggering their fear of being overwhelmed and engulfed and losing themselves in a relationship, you may make it much more likely that they will. If you're on the more withdrawing side of this dynamic, be aware of how your need for space and independence may feel anxiety-provoking to your partner and may leave them with a sense of feeling abandoned or alone in the relationship. Try to see your partner's needs with kindness and compassion rather than as burdens on you. If you can intentionally create space for your partner's feelings and empathize with them, you may find that it's possible to soothe your partner's anxiety. Remember that empathy doesn't mean that you have to agree with your partner or think that everything that they're feeling is completely rational. However, if you're willing to listen to them and show concern for how they're feeling, they're likely to become far more soothed and much less in need of your reassurance. Also experiment more with what it's like to share more of yourself with your partner, to lean on them for emotional and practical support, so you have the experience of not only giving in a relationship, but also receiving. And this can ultimately help you see relationships more as sources of support rather than as sources of burden and demand. Be intentional about creating closeness and intimacy with your partner, especially if you're engaging in a lot of independent pursuits. Don't wait for your partner to approach you. See if you can make some time for them and initiate contact before they come to you. This can do a lot to allay their fear of abandonment, allowing them to feel valued and important to you. By meeting your partner's needs in this way, it's very likely that they're going to become less needy and more independent. And step 5, try to nurture appreciation. Anxious and avoidant attachment styles each bring their own challenges to any relationship. However, they also bring their own strengths. And if you are the more withdrawing partner, see if you can appreciate the effort that your partner puts in to maintaining the relationship, ensuring that your emotional life as a couple doesn't fall off the agenda. And likewise, if you're the more pursuing partner, see if you can appreciate your partner's insistence on independence and maintaining your own separate identities. This kind of distance can help to create desire and sustain passion in a relationship. If both partners are willing to understand and take care of each other as best they can, it's possible that your differences in needs can become a source of creativity and spark in your relationship. Healthy relationships involve both independence and intimacy. So each of you, with your respective attachment styles and needs, has an important contribution to make to the life of your relationship. But a warning, it takes two to tango, but only one person to stamp all over someone else's kindness, goodwill, and generosity. As you do your part to resolve a relationship conflict, it's going to become much clearer whether or not your partner is willing to do theirs. And sometimes it's best to leave the dance floor entirely until you have someone who's willing and able to dance with you, rather than trying to continue to resolve a relationship conflict if the efforts aren't going both ways. If you are navigating these kind of relationship challenges, you might want to check out my other videos on attachment style that I will link to in the description. These will help you understand yourself and your partner better. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you can hear more from me. I look forward to seeing you next time, and in the meantime, take good care.